The recording is now in process, everybody. So we'll start off today with some demo presentations from some of you folks for your conversation activities. And we'll ask Yasmin to start us off. She's going to show us the same lesson that she showed us parts of last time, but she has now completed it. So we'll have a look at what she's done with that. So Yasmin, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and start sharing and go ahead with it. Thank you.
So I already start sharing?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna start. So that's my presentation. We can start the slideshow. Okay. So today I'm giving you a demo on my conversation activity assignment. It is conversation activity number 3 from the 12. So the subject headline is Let's Bake. So the number of students is 15. Level of students is intermediate. Average age, they're kids. Total time is 35 minutes. Student professionals and interest motivated, they're elementary school students. Students' first language and cultural background, all students are from the same country. They share the same culture. English is their first language. The environment is going to be in class and its native area. About the prior knowledge, they have had several years of English instructions, names of food, action verbs related to baking. And they have also learned about present simple and basic conversation. The materials we're going to be using today, we have 2 videos and we have others. I'm just giving you an idea of everything I have here.
Very good.
Yeah, and the materials, we have worksheets and handouts. Those are parts of them. They're new expressions of vocabulary they could use. Also included in the materials, we have sequence, because they're going to be using sequences, like first, next, then, last, finally. Those are all going to be used in their speaking conversation activity. And also how to make a cup of tea. We have some instructions for them they can use, or expressions. The goal of this class is to help students present their cake recipe. I love cake and I love dessert. Enabling objectives to use previous vocabulary, to use new expressions, to use new vocabulary, ingredients, sequences, everything that we had given them. The terminal objective is to have successful presentation, to be able to share their recipes, to be able to build up a complete, clear presentation using the mentioned expressions and previous knowledge. Methodologies are CLT, ALM, and TPR. The pre-activity. Okay, so in this part, the students are going to see the pictures, and they're going to be into groups. They're going to be answering the questions. How many items can you name? Why can we use these items for? And what do you think we're going to do or study about today? I'm going to give them just like a breaking ice or a start activity to think with me. So they're gonna, I'm gonna elect so many vocabulary from them. The actual activity starts here. Listening. We're gonna do while listening to write the steps of baking a cake. So of course they were gonna, in the pre-activity, they're going to be into groups. We're going to elect answers, or you can ask, if you have groups of 4 or 3, name them student A, B, C, and you can ask all students A to stand up, and they switch group and share information with other groups. Then we can come to the actual activity. We're going
Excuse me, Yasmin. When you have the students in groups like that, and then you have them do some work, and then they stand up and they switch groups. Do you
Yeah.
know what the term is that describes that process, that type of group work?
Mm, uh,
That is referred to as jigsaw.
okay. No, I didn't know that. Or maybe it came into my studying, but I didn't focus. Jigsaw?
Jigsaw, like a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So jigsaw, as when the students move around from one group to another,
Yeah.
you have the different parts coming together in a different format. So it's very, very good, very effective use of group work. Good for you. Sorry
Yeah,
for
and we usually do that to give some chance for shy students to listen and to go to another group and to share information, to give them more courage to do the rest of the activity.
correct. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, sorry for the interruption.
No, no, of course, very happy to that. So now we're the actual activity. I'm gonna let them to watch the video and listen. Um, listen to the details, write the steps of making a cake. So now they are still in two groups, and then we're gonna have them listening, watching, and writing. We can repeat the video as many times, like twice or three times, according to the needs of the student. Now, within your groups, check your answers for step one. So they're going to be, again, I'm going to ask student B this time to stand up and switch the jigsaw puzzle activity or thing that we're going to do to go around and go to another group and share their answers. Post activity, we're going to prepare a role play or a presentation based on the conversation or in the video that they heard. They're going to use the phrase they wrote down and the new expressions in slide 9. So the slide 9 should be those new expressions. So we're going to be first, next, then. And if we go back to the video, I did not put on the video for you just to have less time so anybody else want to share. The video says first, next, then, last, and finally. So they're going to use this to make their own recipe using all new expressions. Those are going to be handed out for them to be into their reference, not only on the slide. Would you like to see the video?
That's fine. We don't really have time to watch the
Yes.
video, but
And
but
the
that
last
gives
is
us.
the post activity, that's it. And then we're going to go, this is an evaluation. I
Excellent.
can use it, or I can use any other evaluation, whether and the teacher will assist using the language during the conversation or the role play that they're going to do. So the students respond to the audio listening script. So I can do this evaluation anytime, whether after listening directly and sharing their ideas, going around the class, or at their presentation at the end.
Very good.
Relevant homework is going to be to create a cake recipe. Bring in your ingredients and be prepared to demonstrate your cake making play in class for 2 or 3 minutes. We can share an already made up cake for the class cake party, and this will be shared in the beginning of the next class.
Very nicely done. Thank you, Yasmin.
You're welcome. You're most welcome.
Does anybody have any questions for Yasmin or any comments for her? Go ahead, Farah.
I'm just wondering, is there a limitation on how many slides we can use, or can we just go into more detail and incorporate more slides?
There really is no limitation on the number of slides. So whatever number of slides you need to use in your presentation to get everything in there and include everything. So the way Yasmin had it set up, she had one slide near the beginning that showed us the number of students, the ages, the class size, all of those details. That was all on one slide in little boxes, so that was just fine. And she reduced the number of slides that way. overall, which is fine. Either way is acceptable, so that's fine.
Okay,
Very
thank
nicely
you.
done. Yeah, no problem. Very nicely done, Yasmin. Anybody else have any ideas or thoughts for Yasmin or questions? Nobody else has any questions for Yasmin? I think it was a very nicely done presentation. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Farah. It was well thought out and organized. That's very good. Blossom, are you able to hear us yet?
Yeah, sorry, Daniel. Actually, I tried to connect the meeting through my laptop today, but I was having some technical issues with regarding the audio. So I had to like switch and I then connected it via my phone. So I'm sorry, I just missed the first half of your presentation. I couldn't focus properly. Um,
That's quite all right. We saw Yasmin give her completed lesson for the plan she showed us the other day, and she did a very nice job with it.
Oh, yes, but for the part, I mean, the whatever part I was able to see and understand, definitely it was a very lovely and colorful presentation, and she had put in a lot of efforts to, make sure that each of the step is being followed, and especially I like the chart which she prepared for the assessment form. I like that part a lot.
I agree. I agree. Anybody
Yes.
else have any thoughts or comments for Yasmin? I agree with everybody's comments in the chat box. Nicely done, Yasmin. Good for you. Very
Thank
good.
you, guys. Thank you very much.
Who would like to go next? Who would like to give their demo presentation of a conversation activity next? Farah is ready. Very good, Farah. You go ahead and with your presentation open, then you can click on the share button at the bottom and choose that presentation for showing to us.
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. It might take a brief moment for it to come up on the platform. When you clicked on the share button, did you select your presentation to show?
Oh, it says switch to desktop app.
Are you back now, Farah? While Farah is sorting that out, does somebody else have their presentation to give to us? Shok, do you have your conversation activity ready to display?
Morning. Yes, I haven't prepared the presentation, but I have everything laid out in the assessment form.
Very good. So why don't you go ahead, Shok, and show us what you have so far?
Sure. Okay, let me share the screen from here. Okay, 1 second. Yeah.
So as you folks are sharing your presentation with us, whatever the format is fine. What I'm doing is I'm filling out a brief assessment form about your demonstration. Now, I do not give a mark on this demonstration. This is considered part of your participation. So what I do with this after today's webinar is finished, I scan these pages and I send them to Dr. Valley so that he knows that you've done a demonstration, and that will go as part of your participation mark. And I also copy each of you individually on your PDF assessment form so you can get to see what my comments are about today's presentation for us. Okay, so that's what's happening on my end right now. And go ahead, Shok. This looks fine. Go ahead and tell us about it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's an activity for a group of teenagers. The median age is 17 years old, and it's going to be a day at the beach. Since it's the summer, that's the first thing that came to my mind. They're going to be around 10 students, and they are upper beginners, so around A2. And then it's going to be around 35 to 40 minutes long. I assume that they have some exposure to English previously, but not on a consistent basis, and that's why I chose upper beginner. And then they do have some basic vocabulary related to like water and sand, just basic beach vocabulary, and some water sports like swimming. And they do know how to use present simple and past simple and to express feelings like I hate or I like. In terms of their knowledge, they are school students, so like 11th grade, 12th grade, around that age. And then some of them like exercise, just one of the knowledge they have about the students. And then they are an international and multicultural group in a native classroom, and it's a physical classroom. In terms of the goals, just the overall goal is to discuss how they enjoy their time at the beach, or if they don't like the beach, even to talk about that, like why they don't like the water or are afraid of water or things like that. And then to let them have some knowledge of more water activities. I mean, in terms of vocabulary. And then the enabling objectives will be studying new water sports and beach activities like surfing or scuba diving or paddle boarding. Because I assumed as an A2 students, these words wouldn't be really acquired by them yet, or tanning or hanging or things like that, as well as beach essentials, like what do you take to the beach? Sunscreen, tanning oil.
Food. Food.
And food, definitely. Like food words, you mean? Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
snacks. There will be some snacks.
Perfect.
I do want to leave like some room for them to introduce the vocabulary that they want to come to bring to the class versus me just giving like assuming that these are the only groups that they want to bring or learn.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. In terms of now grammar, using like, dislike, love, hate, plus the ing. So I enjoy reading. Yeah, she likes surfing. And then revising the yes/no questions, which they should have already also known from like A2 at the A1 levels. And but I will do so not like in a grammar session, like we're going to talk about this, more so what do you like to do on the beach? Like just asking them in a conversation manner versus introducing it consciously, I mean. And then in terms of the terminal objectives, the ultimate goal, or like at the end of the lesson, I hope they will know how to express likes, dislikes, and feelings, discuss like what they do on the beach as a routine, and to expand their vocabulary on that topic. I will come back to the methodology to see like if that's the case or not, and then to talk about that later. And then so I'll go to the materials. There will be some pictures that they will bring, not me, but there will also be a video, YouTube video. I didn't add this here. And then I'll use the whiteboard. That's about it.
Will
And
you
there will be
have
some.
will you have worksheets and handouts for them?
There will be, yes, there will be one. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you submit this lesson assignment for marking to TESOL, you need to include pictures as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be either a PowerPoint presentation that I will make, put like at the water
Okay.
sports with their definitions, or there's a YouTube video that I will show in a bit, which is either or. I haven't made up my mind yet.
That's fine, as long as you include pictures, because that's important when you
Yeah.
send the assignment in.
Yeah,
So-
and because it says here it's audio visual, so I will need to add that. But it was hard for me
Absolutely.
because they will bring their own pictures, and I'll explain in a second.
That's fine.
So yeah, so I'll introduce the topic, and then from homework, so the previous class, they were asked to bring to research on Google, like some water sports that they don't know about, with an accompanying picture. So they will have them on their phone. I'm not going to ask them to print them out. And then they will here they will share their findings in a group. So they will be in a group of 3 or 4, and they will just share their findings with the pictures and the group, the sport title, sorry. And then we will talk about them together. They will share what they found out with the class. After that, there will be like a small YouTube video, as I said, or 1 second. This bar. Okay, how do I? Yeah. Okay, 1 second here. You're still okay. There we go. Here. It's just the bar is in a yeah, there we go. So this is the YouTube video, just like the
Very
picture
good.
of each sport and yeah, and the name of each sport. And then just to practice some pronunciation, because there will be some of them are like long words like paddle boarding, we will just go around the room to say them together 1 or 2 times.
Very good.
And then there's a listening activity, and that's specifically from the British Council teens, because they are teens, and it's about free time, and they will be talking about local swimming pool. It's just a 2-minute listening activity, and I checked the level beforehand, and it's A2 here. It was really hard to find the listening activity for A2, by the way. It was all advanced and C2 and C1. Or intermediate. And then there's like 2 exercises here, gap filling and true or false for the listening. So they will do that too. So in total, that will be like around 5 or 7 minutes long. And then we will correct. Thank you. And then we will correct the answer together, check them together, and then I will introduce the likes and dislikes. Again, the whole activity is around 40-45 minutes. So I think I'm still good on time here. And then, yeah, that's where I will ask them, like, so do you like going to the beach? If like, Michael, do you like going to the beach? Or, Sarah, what do you enjoy doing on the beach? So that's how I will introduce both the topic and the grammar. And then we will brainstorm together on the board. They will give me ideas on what kind of questions we can ask, because they will be working in pairs. So I will explain that they will be working in pairs, talking about their day at the beach, and like interviewing each other. So what kind of helpful questions they can think about to write on the board, including here the WH and yes/no questions, and using the like, dislike plus the gerund. And as well as I will ask them like what kind of answers we can have. So yes, I really like, the degree of likes and dislikes, I don't really like, or I really hate, etc. So now we have the questions and the answers, possible ones on the board, and then they will work in pairs for around 7-8 minutes to ask each other these questions and to take down notes. So while one student, and then when that's done, they will report back to the class to use, especially like he, she with an S, to practice that more, so they can talk about their partners' likes and dislikes. And then in the end, this is part of the post-assessment. I will give them some feedback on just how they did overall, pronunciation, grammar, vocab, anything that stood out. There's also while this is all happening, I'm monitoring just their like the listening when we did the listening activity or when they're giving. I haven't figured out if I'm gonna like actually have a form or like if I'm just gonna take down notes on what I'm gonna tell them at the end. I haven't figured that part out. Does it need to be very, very detailed here?
You don't need to go into extreme detail. If you want to show a rubric, the way that Yasmin had a rubric for assessment, that's fine. Or if you want to just describe it briefly, that's okay too. As long as you give some explanation of how the assessment will occur.
Okay, got it.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, definitely. So I will think about that more then. And then,
Yes.
yeah, in terms of extra assessment, extra class assignment, they will write a short paragraph about a memorable vacation or trip to the beach with their family or by themselves. And we can either read it in class next time or just like grade it and mark it. But here I wasn't also very sure because we didn't talk about the past simple here. But again, we didn't talk about it like consciously as like, okay, let's talk about grammar now. So maybe I'm assuming that within the class, someone will have said or could have said that yesterday I went to the beach. So it could, past simple could have been used like naturally in the class. And that's why I could ask them to write that in the past. Because otherwise I felt a bit weird that you can't ask them to write in the past simple when we haven't practiced it in class. It was just a bit, I don't know, or maybe it's possible.
No, I understand what you're saying. Even though you did not include it as a grammar item per se in the lesson itself, you could still ask them to write a brief paragraph about their beach experience, and they will automatically be talking in past simple.
Got it. Okay, great.
You know, and then you've got this nicely set up, this conversation activity. You can turn this easily into a 4 skills lesson plan by adding specific reading and writing activities in the lesson. So you could have in the lesson, you could have a little section about grammar and using past, present, simple, right? Or present simple or whatever you want to include in the lesson. And then that links also to an extra class assignment where you ask them to use past simple
I see.
to describe something, right?
Right. So, okay, that's helpful. But also here, like when I do like ask them and talk about like using the like dislike plus ing, but I haven't actually just specifically talked about that. It doesn't mean here that we are covering some grammar, but not in a like direct way as like the grammar translation method.
Correct. So you've got an introduction to the use of adding ing, but you don't have it as a formal grammatical drill exercise. In the lesson plan, you could insert a formal grammar drill exercise where they're practicing adding ing to different words.
That's okay, I got it. So that's where I was thinking of adding the worksheet that you talked about, which is
Sure.
well, okay, 1 second. 1 second, it was right here. But it will like on its own, it will take around 35 minutes. So I do have to modify it before I actually include it. So it's a bit long. So and is it okay to like find like materials online and include them in terms of games and because it's a game?
Yes, that's fine.
It's fine. Okay.
Because when you include this item, if you're including this worksheet, it automatically gives the reference to the source of where the material came from.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I mean, the name of the website is right on the paper, so that's fine.
Okay.
If you were to copy this information and say that you're creating your own worksheet, but without a reference to where you got the material from, that would be plagiarism.
Yes, of course.
But if you just borrow the sheet And these are free download sheets for people to use. So if you just borrow the sheet and include the whole sheet, it takes care of the reference sourcing automatically.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think I will add the source because I will write modified. I will not include the whole thing. It's very long.
That's fine.
So yeah, this will be, they will work in pairs, like student A, they answer these questions and they write their own questions here. Do you like, do you not like?
Good.
And it includes some like water sports and whatnot. And then student B does the same. And then they write each other's questions. And here it's the same thing that we're going to write on the board, like what is positive reply, what's negative reply.
Yes.
But this is if I needed to include more grammar drilling.
And
basically.
that would be the case in the 4 skills lesson plan, that you also have to create those.
Yes.
But while we're talking about this, this applies to all of you. So you're creating your conversation activities, and some of you have already submitted them. That's a good idea. That's a good thing to have them submitted by now. But the next step is to create 4 skills conversation lesson plans. That's the next assignment. So very simply, select some of your conversation activities and just expand them to include activities that are for reading and writing specifically. So in the 4 skills lesson plan, under the activities, the direction and guide section, you should identify activities that are for listening, identify activities for speaking, and then identify activities, might be worksheets or the grammar pages like Shok was just showing us. Identify activities that are for reading, identify for writing, and have the 4 skills lesson plans broken down with activities for each of the 4 skills to make the 4 skills lesson plan. Does that make sense? But use your own work. So use your own conversation activities and turn them into 4 skills lesson plans. You don't need to recreate the wheel and come up with all brand new ideas for the 4 skills lesson plans. You know, use your own information, use what you've already developed, it, just expand it a little bit to turn it from a conversation activity that focuses on speaking and listening, turn that into a 4 skills lesson plan. All right. Yes, Beshad, question.
Hello, Daniel. I am still not 100% clear about the difference between a conversation and a speaking activity, because we have to do 10 of each, I believe. I have gone through the forms, but conversation and speaking kind of overlap each other, so I wasn't 100% sure
Well, the
what difference.
conversation activity is the lesson, and inside inside each conversation activity, inside each of those 10 conversation activities, you are including speaking and listening sub activities. That's what makes it a conversation activity, is it's focusing on speaking and listening only.
All right. And the speaking activity, which was separately, we have to also do 10 um, lesson plans for it. That is just the speaking. So,
No, you don't do 10 that are just speaking. You do 10 conversation activities. Inside each of those conversation activities, there are speaking parts and there are listening parts.
oh, okay. So we don't have a separate speaking activity. I
No,
misunderstood.
no, that's
Okay.
okay. No, you don't do separate speaking activities. That's just creating more work for yourselves. That's
Okay.
that's not required. So just do 10 conversation activities. And you notice, for instance, in Shok's Word document here, she has listening and speaking activities. So at different points, the students are talking about things. That's the speaking, and then she's got a listening exercise identified right after the YouTube video. So she's included speaking and listening inside the conversation activity, which is exactly what you're supposed to do.
Correct. Okay. Great.
Okay, does
Thank
that
you.
help? That help, Beshad?
Yeah. I don't know why I thought that it's 10 of each.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, combine them together. 10 of each would be a lot of extra work. and beyond what you're required to do.
Thank you.
Very good, Shok. Thank you very much for your presentation. Did you have something you wanted to say, Shok?
Yeah, one last thing I left to the end is just the methods I used. I think I used the CLT, the direct method, because of the listening and audiovisual elements, and not talking about like grammar like per se specifically. And then the notional functional
Yes.
syllabus, because of the functions of expressing likes and dislikes.
Yes. Good choice of methodologies. That works nicely here.
Thank you.
And because of the group work and the role playing, you might also want to include TPR.
The TPR, right. Okay, you mean because they brought their pictures and
Exactly.
things like that?
They
Okay.
brought pictures, and so they'll talk about them. You know, they'll be explaining them, and they'll be moving their hands around, things like that. So there's activity, there's action involved there. Whenever you have an action involved and it's
Yes.
linked to pictures or something of that nature, that becomes TPR. And
Okay, got it.
TPR builds into almost every lesson. You know, whether you intend it to or not, it almost by default becomes part of just about every lesson. So that was good. Thank you, Shok.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments or questions for Shok about her presentation? No comments for Shok or anything you'd like to say? Okay, that's fine. It was a very, very good presentation. Lots of detail there, Shok. Good for you. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Who would like to go next and give us a brief sharing of your conversation activity? Anybody else ready to go? Farah, did you get things sorted out with your computer?
I hope so. Let me see.
Give it a try.
Oh, it's
Irina, I see the note in the chat box. No, we cannot hear you. If you said something, no, we can't hear you, Irina. Irina, try leaving the meeting and come back in. Irina, if you leave the meeting and then join the meeting again, that might trigger your microphone. Give that a try. And Farah, do you have your presentation open on your computer?
I have it open, but it's because I'm trying to do this through WebEx. It's saying open system preferences to grant access. And when I do that, I can't, I've clicked on it, but it doesn't go beyond that.
Just a moment. Let me I just made you a presenter. So try it now.
Okay, let me just try to share my screen now. Again, it says open system preferences.
I don't understand what the problem is. Shok, do you have an idea?
I have an idea. The final idea is if Farah can send their presentation to yourself and then you do the slides and then Farah can speak about it, talk about it. That's the only solution I can see.
Yes, that would work too. Farah, if you want to email me your presentation.
Okay, so it's not still complete. So let me see if I can email this to you, Daniel, and then if you can share it.
Certainly. You have my email address?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, so somebody else can go while I'm trying that. Sorry about this.
And Blossom, I see you're having the same kind of problem. So Blossom, if you want to email your presentation to me, I will show it.
Yes.
I'll share it and you can talk about it.
Oh, sure, Daniel. Yeah, I'll just mail it to you right away.
Okay, and you have my email address too, Blossom?
Oh, yes, I do, Daniel. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, ladies, and email those to me. And whichever one arrives first, you get to go first. So we'll see if the internet is helping us out today or not. Does anybody else want to do a sharing of their demo today for us? Anybody else prepared? Minerva, how are you coming along with your conversation activities?
Hi, Daniel. I'm getting behind a little bit. We have some classes, extra classes that I wasn't counting on. But I do have the activity per se, but I haven't gone into the details, so I can show it. But I don't really know, to be honest, like what is the format that you want me to present or to explain how it goes, in terms of describing it. You can go for it, but I don't know if I haven't gone through into the details. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
No, I understand. So continue to listen to the other ladies who are talking. This is Blossom's presentation, so we'll let Blossom describe what she's doing here. And then Minerva, perhaps you can give it a try as well. So Blossom, go ahead. Are you able to see my screen now? Are you there, Blossom?
Hello. Yes, Daniel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you see my screen? It's got your PDF on.
Yes, Daniel, I can see that. Okay, so shall I just start with my explanation?
Just begin at the top and work your way down through it.
Sure. So I have designed a conversation activity. It's basically an art activity for students of elementary school level. So the participants are, say, around 15 in number, and the knowledge of their previous knowledge in English, I have just written it down as a foundation. So they basically don't have much exposure of the English language, and the average age of the students is around 10 years of age. And the time duration is, for say around 45 minutes, which I have designed. So here what I have tried to do is I have and the students, it's a group of 15 students, and they all belong to different cultural groups with different languages as their first language. So the setup is, say, for example, if I'm teaching in Canada, so it's a native environment and it's an offline setup. So basically, I have tried to design it like a classroom activity, where our goals would be for the children. It would be to identify the colors and the names of the colors, various colors, and the various art tools that they can use to create art, and following which following this exercise, which I have designed for them, they would be able to, indulge in an art activity and follow the instruction given by their respective art teachers in English. So, since they are kids of, say, suppose fourth or fifth grade, so basically, the teaching aids that I have used over here, first now that I have described the goal over here, the overall goal, the enabling objectives or the enabling activities would include making them learn the names of different colors and drawing tools to begin with. And I would give them various flashcards of different colors so that they can identify each color using the flashcards. And I have also, I will also be designing some list of vocabulary uh, which uh, which enlists various names of colors and the color beside it so that they can identify each color and the name. And similarly, I will also give them a vocabulary list of several art tools, say like pen, pencil, stationery items, or a paintbrush, something of that sort. And if possible, try to include the pictures of each art tool so that they can, visually correlate it to the object and what it is named and or what it is called. So that way they'll be familiar with the colors and the art tools. After that, I will present to them a short video showing an art activity, say like um, a video showing several primary or secondary colors and how to mix colors, and which will include various verbs, verbs like say painting, sketching, drawing, erasing, words like that, so that they can understand each of the actions that they would use or that they would identify if somebody is making a drawing or something of that sort. So following which they'll be learning the verbs or different actions that are involved in an art activity. After that, I'll be so after that, I plan on using the audio since there is video involved, and since I'll be, literally dictating the spelling and teaching them the correct pronunciation. So that would include the audiolingual method. So I will spell the word out for them, the names of colors and the tools, and also give them out the correct pronunciation. After which I will ask them to repeat it after me. So that would make use of the audiolingual method. After that, I would also demonstrate the use of using appropriate adjectives over here. Say like once they have learned the names of the colors and the tools, and they have learned various verbs. So now they can identify a video or an activity of art, and once the art is done, so whatever the painting or whatever is there on the paper, I will teach them words to describe that. Say, for instance, I will provide them with a list of words, mainly adjectives, say like beautiful or colorful or bright. Which will help them to, identify the art piece, and they will also learn certain adjectives to describe them. So there I would be, teaching them some verbs and adjectives also in this activity. And while using the adjectives, I also, I'll also be aiming at using proper intonation so that they can, also learn some speaking skills uh, along with listening skills.
That's
And
good. Now, right in here where you're talking about distributing a list of colors, art tools, verbs, adjectives, you should include the,
hmm?
the list of the colors. You should include the list of the art tools. Actually put the list right in here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed that.
So
Uh,
talking about it is fine, but then you need
okay.
to actually include what would the list look like? What is on the list?
Oh, okay.
So on the list, you might have pictures and then the word. So you might have a
Mm,
picture of a paintbrush and then the word paintbrush typed out, for
mm-hmm.
example, but include the actual sample of what you would be handing out to the students.
Right, Daniel. So maybe I can add that
Yeah, so
over here.
add more details.
Yes,
Add
sure,
more
sure.
details into it, okay? But
Okay, Daniel.
this looks quite good as a good start, and you've got the objectives and the goal well identified. That's good. People usually have trouble with that, but you've done a good job there. So
Okay.
so let's have a quick look at the assessment now and the extra class assignment.
Oh, yes. So actually, I probably couldn't figure out exactly like how I would, you know, assess in detail. But then what I could think was, probably asking them questions and assessing the response to each of the activities. So I'll make them repeat whatever I have shown them in the form of a video or the cards. And I would again, ask them, I would again show them the different colored flashcards and ask them to, repeat the name of the color and the tools loudly so that I can assess their pronunciations and if they are able to, identify the color correctly. So that is one
That's
way
good.
of assessing. Yeah,
Yep,
so that's
that's
one
good.
way. Yeah,
Yep,
and then I can, so, and then I don't have a, sorry about that, I don't have a link of the video, but I would try to find an appropriate video and mute the video and play the video. So while the video is playing, I will pause it at different intervals to ask them what did the doer of the action did. So I'll ask them to use an appropriate verb over there, and once the activity is done, I will ask them how did they find the art piece or the art that was done in the end. So I would like to know some of the adjectives from them. So that
good.
is one way I thought of assessing if they have actually understood what these verb forms mean and what these adjectives mean. So
That's good.
that is how I thought. Yeah.
That's good. And the extra class assignment, that links nicely to the whole lesson and all the activities in the lesson. Good for you.
Yeah. So that's what I just thought of an after class assignment to ask the students to prepare a chart and label them of the various colors, and also include the family members and the feedback, so so that they can come back in the next class and show it to me, and whatever the responses they've received from their family members. So that is what I have thought.
Yes, no, that's good. And any comments from anybody for Blossom about her presentation there? Go ahead, Shok.
Yeah, I really like it, especially colors for that age. It's a very cool activity to engage elementary students. I'm just curious. Sorry, I'm just curious, since they are elementary and these you said that they had no exposure to the language before.
Yes.
I was just curious about, like, some of the vocabulary might be a bit too advanced for that level if they don't know any, like the word colorful. It's a 3-word syllable, right?
Yes.
So I'm just wondering,
Yes.
like, how would you navigate that, or like what kind of vocabulary that you will go for that for students with no exposure to English?
Oh yeah, that's a nice question. So probably since they are from an elementary level, so we could look at very simple verbs or adjectives like maybe adjectives say like beautiful, or maybe bright, or maybe what else can we think of? Mm, I don't know. Probably we'll have to think for some simpler verbs. Yeah, I guess, and adjectives. Or probably I can ask them, instead of teaching them adjectives, probably I can ask them how they felt about the activity, or what would they like to say about the activity. So they can express in their own simple words if they liked it or not, and I can see what words, I mean, in their own language probably, and then I can translate those same words in English for them and teach them that this, the way that they're feeling, this is called, this is the word which we say in English. So they'll be able to correlate their feelings and learn a new word for it in English. So
That's
probably we can
cool.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think translation could be used here given their
Yes.
zero exposure to English.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, and Farah, you have your hand up. Did you have a comment for Blossom?
Yeah, I think teaching, especially the way she's designed her lesson plan, given the fact that the students have no foundation even in English, using actually visual cues of actually showing them colors and maybe the color wheel, like the primary colors, secondary colors, actually visually showing them that would be a better way for them to absorb and kind of perk their interest. Because when students actually see, there's more sensory perception, and that would make your lesson come alive. It's just my 2 cents worth.
Good
Yes.
idea.
Yes, that's right. I'll take that feedback. Thank you so much, Farah.
Thank you. And Yasmin, you have some comments?
Yeah, thank you, Blossom, for the interesting ideas. I just wanted to comment on shock and how do we teach colorful and such adjectives. Like Farah said, you can have videos or visual aids more than a translation or anything. So videos,
Yes.
and you can find a small video like kids talking together about one color to adding two colors, three colors, that will make the picture colorful. And making like what Farah said is like more visual, more videos, more pictures will make it easy for you. But
Yeah,
thank you
all
very
right.
much. It was good.
Thank you. Thank you all of you for the feedback. Yeah, I'll work on that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Blossom, and thank you everybody for your constructive comments. That's always helpful. All right. I'm just going to share Farah's presentation now. And this will be the last one that we actually do today because there's some other material I need to get on to covering with you for the rest of the webinar. But I'll go ahead and share Farah's presentation. And you can go ahead and start. I'm just going to make it a little bit larger here. Oh, I got a security alert. What's that about? Okay, we're good to go. Go ahead, Farah. You're muted, Farah. Can you unmute your
Yes.
microphone?
Hi. So I've designed a conversation activity around making friends.
Good.
So that would be my first slide. The number of students, 10. And then the level of students, intermediate. Average age, 30. Students' professions and interests, multiple professions, and their interest is socializing. First language, French, and then a multicultural background. Total time, 45 minutes. Environment of practice online. I've used CLT and then audiolingual as methods. Maybe I could include TPR. So anticipated problems and solutions. So one of the problems I would see is that students may lack the vocabulary needed. They may not know the format of a dialogue. They may lack confidence and then have issues with language ego in terms of being confident in how much they're willing to actually participate. Solutions would be to provide vocabulary lists, listen to a sample conversation, provide sample conversation scripts, provide conversation starters and possible situation with conversation prompts. The material used in the activity, Wi-Fi, YouTube videos, picture cues. I think I have to include my YouTube video link at this point, isn't it, Daniel?
Yes, good idea. Yes.
So introduction, the teacher will introduce herself and ease her students into a conversation by asking them simple questions, their name, where they're from, and simple yes and no answers, just to kind of get a warm up and get everyone comfortable in the classroom. Oh, sorry, I've not included my enabling objectives. So I would have to include that in there.
Yes.
So it would be to basically give them the steps of vocabulary, give them the steps of how to build a conversation. And I will have to include more detail in there. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Yes, you are correct. Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Terminal objectives would be to be able to create a dialogue and have a conversation on a real life situation or topic that's authentic, where conversation becomes more natural to them and they're not actually thinking about the grammatical structures and if they are making a mistake. So the process, the pre-teaching task would include preparing material, choose an interesting topic that's authentic, that's universal because you're dealing with a multicultural group, create a lesson plan and a structure. While teaching tasks, work at the level of the students, not leaving anyone behind, provide information, guidance, stop to check if the students have understood, allow them to participate and offer their own ideas. So that would kind of create a more interactive teaching and learning environment because you want the students to feel they are also kind of comfortable in sharing whatever experiences they have around the topic. Post-teaching task, evaluate their performance, conversation skills, which would be like clarity, pronunciation, pace, and vocabulary. Relevant homework, have a conversation in a natural context with someone, record it, and bring it into class to share with your peers. I was not sure with the appendix, what would I be including there, Daniel?
Well, you've got examples of pictures. That's a good thing to have there.
Okay,
And this is like a worksheet approach.
okay.
So you
So if
could
okay,
you could have this as an item you would distribute to the students.
okay. So if you can go back to the fourth slide, yeah. So then I would first include, I think, number 4. Where can you, what before that? Oh, number 4 is not sure. So then I included a little slide on where can you meet new friends. This would be like a pre-warm-up to check what kind of vocabulary they knew. And so you could build on more words around a park or a yoga class or school. And then I go into the next one that says, let's break the ice by saying hello. There's a YouTube video on this particular page. And then I give them a few conversation starters. I then move on to the next slide that kind of helps them match.
Yes, that's good.
And then into a sample conversation. And then I give them 4 scenarios to choose from.
Yes, that's good.
And then I kind of break that down further. So then what I did was I took each scenario, I gave them a list of vocabulary that they could use around creating a dialogue. And I gave
Oh,
them
I
a
see.
few,
Good. That's good. Yes.
so that way it helps them even further. I need to include a little more detail in terms of what I'm assessing after each of these different areas, Daniel, in slides.
That would be a good idea. Yes.
And then the final assessment on how to actually gauge what the students have learned.
Right. Right. Yes. So that's good. That gives us lots of detail for activities and lots of pictures. That's good. Now, I didn't see the YouTube video link.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it on that either. Maybe because I emailed it.
That could be. So just make sure that you include the link, the YouTube video link in the presentation again,
Yes.
and that's fine. Is that YouTube video link, is it inside this movie?
No, it was on the, no, it was on the next page, that one right there where it says, hello, my name is Andrea. That's a YouTube link that kind of gives them different scenarios where you have conversations.
Fair enough. Just make sure the link actually gets copied in here and,
Okay.
and goes with it. Now, when you have these items, you should include your goals and enabling and terminal objectives on a separate slide.
Okay.
You've sort of got them mixed into the actual activities of the lesson plan here.
Okay.
So separate the goals and activities out ahead of time on a separate slide and then move into the introduction of the lesson. And then you can talk about these pre, while, and post-teaching tasks.
Okay.
And then put the extra take-home assignment, the relevant homework assignment, put that at the very end.
Okay.
So pull this out of here and put it down at the very end.
Okay.
So on a separate slide at the very end, you could talk about your assessment and you could talk about the extra take-home assignment.
Okay, Daniel.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Rather than mixing those into the steps of the actual direction,
Mm-hmm.
you want to
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, highlight it nice.
highlight it by putting it at the end.
Mm.
That's right. All right. Comments or questions for Farah about her PowerPoint presentation? Anybody? Any comments, questions? Well, you had lots of pictures and lots of detail in there, Farah, so that was very nicely done.
Thank you.
And you've got your PowerPoint is very thorough. So I would suggest all you need to do is just reorganize those little parts that I mentioned
Yes.
so that you get it into more of a logical order for laying it out as a lesson plan. Okay?
Daniel, what is the you I think you told Yasmin, what is the format in which we can email all of the conversation activities? What was the you said there was a particular format she could do it in.
Well, you can send your conversation activities as a Word document, as a PDF, or as PowerPoints. So you've got a PowerPoint set up here. But as Yasmin has discovered, she tried to email her PowerPoint conversation activities and the file was too big.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's true. So I had like 5 PowerPoints and the rest were like on documents. And TESOL replied back that they could not open it. They sent me another link to use another application.
What's
I'll
the name
try.
of the application?
So I just typed it in the chat box.
Yes, transfer.com. Yes,
Okay.
WeTransfer.com.
Thank you, Daniel.
So you can always go to the WeTransfer.com website. And when you open up there, you can create an account with your email address. You can create it for free, doesn't cost anything. And then you can indicate that you just want to send files. And if you create the account, if you create an account for yourself, then when you want to send files, it has your email address verified. So this is the WeTransfer site. So that was the last time I emailed a webinar to info@tesolcanada.ca. So when you're on the WeTransfer site, I'm logged in with my email address. But if I log out, then this is what you'll see when you go to the WeTransfer site. So you can sign up for free. You can sign up here. And by signing up and creating an account with your email address, it means you do not need to verify your transfers. If you try to send something without signing up and having a login, then you'll have to verify your email address every time you try to send something. But do it for free. You do not need to pay for it. You don't need to set up the pro account. You can just use it for free. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
So when we upload the items and everything, how does it automatically send it to TESOL, or do we have to type in the email? Because there's another email on the Canvas course. It's resources@tesolcanada.org.
Correct. And so if you're typing it in here, say when I send these, I type the email address in that I'm sending it to. When I send recordings of the webinars, I send them to Dr. Valley. So that has his email address that comes up automatically.
Okay.
But if you wanted to send it to resources,
Because that's what we're sending them, right? To resources.
Sure, at tesolcanada.org. You just type in the email address.
Okay.
So you
Okay,
can type in resources@tesolcanada.org. You could also use info@tesolcanada.org. That's basically the same email address. It goes to the same place.
Mm.
Okay, so
And
you type in the email address you want it to go to.
I see. Okay, got it. And just the second question quickly. Can some conversation activities be like laid out in a PowerPoint and some of them laid out in the assessment form, and then all of that could be one PDF? Or
That could be all inside one folder.
so it doesn't all have to be in one PDF.
No. You
Okay.
see, it says here, select a folder.
Oh, I see.
So I go here, and if I go to my TESOL teaching file, and I could, for instance, I could upload my entire folder. It puts all the files from my review templates,
Hmm.
and it says only do this if you trust the site. Well, obviously I'm not going to upload all my review templates into that site, but that's how you would do it.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
you would have a folder in your computer called conversation activities, and you would upload that entire folder. Now inside the folder, you might have some of the conversation activities as PowerPoint presentations. You might have some of them as PDF files or Word documents, whichever you choose. But everything can be inside the folder.
Okay, I see. But I remember, like in the first or second lesson, you told us that when we use the page numbers, like page number on the form, like this activity is on that page, that they should be in one, like
Yes,
in one
I
document.
understand what you're saying, Shope. Don't worry about that point.
Okay.
Just number all of your conversation activities. So CA number 1, CA number 2, CA number 3,
Okay.
whether it's a PowerPoint or a PDF document, forget about that page number, because you can't really put a PowerPoint inside a PDF. So keep them as separate items. That's just fine. I know what you're referring to, but don't worry about that little tiny detail.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So what happens with WeTransfer, once you upload that folder, everything in the folder goes up to the WeTransfer cloud. And then WeTransfer sends a link, a hyperlink to TESOL. And when TESOL receives that hyperlink, they then use the hyperlink to access that up in the cloud. Then they download it from the cloud. That's how you make it work. Okay? And you can, in this message box down here, you can type conversation activities for Shok, or put your name in there so that it's obvious who it is and what it is. And make sure you use the same email address that you've been using for all of your TESOL work, your Canvas platform email address. Keep the same email address, okay? All right, any questions about that WeTransfer, folks? Good to go? Okay. All right. So thank you very much for doing those presentations. I just need to get over to another screen and then we'll start sharing the screen. So the topic for the remainder of our webinar today is the research paper, which is the big final assignment. But just before I go to that, just a reminder about the four skills lesson plans. Remember to borrow your own material, use your conversation activities, and whether you need to complete 4 or 6 of the 4 skills lesson plans, whatever program you're in, whichever certificate you're going for, use your own conversation activities and just expand on them so that you don't have to recreate brand new material, okay? Use your own material, build on it, and just add reading and writing activities into the conversation activities you've already designed to turn them into the 4 skill lesson plans. Make sense? Okie doke. Any questions about that? Quickly before we move on to the research paper. Good to go on that? Excellent. Thank you. All right. The final research paper. We go to the modules and we scroll down the modules and we get down to the final research paper right here. We click on the final research paper. So this asks you to to write a paper choosing from one of these 4 topics, A, B, C, or D. So you choose one of these 4 topics and you write a paper that is approximately 8 to 10 pages and you respond to whatever the topic is talking about. The topic I chose to write on was the ESL program in Canada for immigrants and international students. It is called the LINK program, which stands for Language Instruction for Newcomers to Canada. So in my paper, which is this one right here, I began my paper with a brief introduction to the overall topic. Now, I wrote this I was writing this in June, July of 2020, early on during the pandemic. So I took that perspective, writing from the perspective of pandemic environment when I was talking in my paper. Be sure that you use footnotes or in-text references to whatever your sources are. So I talked about similarities between the LINK program and other programs. I talked about the eligibility of people for the program. So I went through all these different aspects of the LINK program. the cost of it, how the Canadian government pays for it, how they cover the cost of it. I talked about what the cost is, and I talked about future funding of the program as well. So you go into a lot of detail, and the assignment asks for you to write 8 to 10 pages. My paper is actually 18 pages long, including a bibliography. You must include a bibliography. At the end of your paper, you must include all the reference sources, whether it's a web link or whether it's a government document with the web link that goes to it, whether it's a news file, whatever the item is that you referred to in your paper, you must include all of these references in your bibliography at the end of the paper. All right. This is a formal essay which requires the bibliography. I also used in my paper an appendix with a chart that I actually took from the TESOL manual, page 156. So I gave the reference source there. And I referred to this appendix chart in my paper, but I wanted to specifically include this chart. So I just made the reference to it as well. Always give the reference for anything that you actually borrow from another document, somebody else's document. Okay? Now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about designing a research paper, but does anybody have any questions from what you see here of my paper?
What research or citing style are you using? Is it APA?
You can use either APA or MLA. Mine is more MLA than APA, with the footnotes at the bottom like that, more MLA style. But APA or MLA is fine. Either one. Whatever you're most familiar with is fine. Okay? Any other
Yes.
questions? Any other questions, folks?
Is it 8 to 10 pages without the references? It's without the references, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So mine would be 8 to 10 pages plus the appendix plus the references.
Okay.
So 8 to 10 pages of actual essay material, right? Which doesn't count the cover page either. Cover page is just the cover page to identify everybody and what it is. So I put the actual question that I was talking about, I put it right on the cover page. All right. Any other questions, folks? You don't have to put a fancy design on it. I just decided to. Farah, you have a question?
Yes, Daniel, given the content of the questions, this paper is due towards the end of the course or at what point in time?
Correct. This is for the end of the course. I would recommend that you should write this paper and submit it before the final board exam, because the actual preparation and writing of this paper could help you study for the board exam. Now, you know, there could be questions on the board exam about some of these topics. So there might be questions on the final board exam that relate to A, B, and C. There was no question on the board exam that linked to my paper writing about the LINK program in Canada, but that's okay. I was just really curious about it and wanted to find out about it. I doubt that you're going to have any questions about the LINK program on the board exam. It's too specific to Canada. This program is too specific to Canada. Doesn't really apply to any other countries. But all of these other three questions provide the basis of very good material for a board exam question. So if you're writing on one of these three topics, you could very possibly be preparing for questions on the final board exam. So you want to get this written and thought through before the board exam, because it will probably help you. Okay? But I would do all of your other assignments first. So by now you should have already completed and submitted your foundation essay. That was the very first thing. Your conversation activities, if you have not already handed them in, you should hand those in very soon. And then the 4 skills lesson plans, do those very soon after you complete your conversation activities, because there's a strong connection between those two assignments. And hand in your 4 skills lesson plans as soon as possible. And then there will be a MOOC research paper that we'll talk about another day. And then you'll have this final research paper, which is the big essay for the course. And this is due by the end of your time completing the course. I just strongly recommend that you submit it before you write the board exam. That's not required. I know people who wrote the board exam and then submitted their research paper afterwards. But of course, that doesn't help you to study and prepare for the board exam. Yes, Farah.
Daniel, I have a question with regards to the board exam. Would we be example format of how the examination paper is set out, or is that something that they don't share with the students?
They absolutely show you a sample format. So if you go to the modules section of your Canvas platform, and if you go right down to the end of after the research paper, they've got a section about final board exam preparation here. So they do give you an example of the structure.
Okay, thank you.
So you can all have a look at that, and it gives you a very clear idea of how the exam is designed and the types of questions that are being asked in the exam process. Okay? And then on the next page, there's a bit of a more detailed breakdown of a sample. So they absolutely do show you an example of it. Now, the one thing that is different, the final board exam is now 4 hours long. When I wrote it, it was 3 hours, but that was a couple of years ago. It's now 4-hour exam. Okay? Shok, you have a question?
Yeah, is the final board exam the one on September 3rd? That's the one, right? Or
I believe that is when a final board exam is scheduled, yes. That date is not up here on the platform yet. It still has old dates on it, but I believe September 3rd is a board exam date.
okay.
Now, if you do not feel ready to write the board exam on September 3rd, that's okay. You can wait and request to write it at a later date, you know, a month later or 6 weeks later, whenever the next board exam is set. So again, because it's self-paced study course, you're not required to write that on September 3rd if you're not ready for it.
Okay, that's great because I will have some internet issues. I won't be in Canada. I will be in Syria, so I don't think I will be able to do it from there.
When will you be coming back to Canada?
Mid-September.
Then I would strongly suggest that you wait and write it when you come back. Because I agree, when you're in Syria, you probably would not have a stable internet connection. And nothing would be worse than to get partway into the exam and lose the connection.
Exactly. Yeah. And so who do I write to?
You would write to Simon Baker.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
at info Canada, info@tesolcanada.org.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else have any questions about the final board exam? You see down at the bottom of this page where it talks about the board exam, it actually gives some samples of actual questions that have been asked in the past. So here's a good one. When writing a lesson plan, which one of the following orders shall be respected? A, B, or C? What order do you put these items in? A, B, or C? Anybody?
See?
Correct. Who said C?
Me?
Shok, you just got 5 marks for doing that.
Ooh.
See, that question is worth 5 marks in the exam. All right, so you can go through these actual sample questions, and I actually remember some of these being on the board exam I wrote a couple of years ago. I'm not going to tell you which ones, but I recognize some of these questions almost exactly. So number 15 here, this type of a question. So 15, 16, and 17 they're all connected together. So they explain the scenario to you, and then they ask, how would you deal with the level problem in this scenario? And what method would you use most for the age differences? So this type of a question, this is a favorite type of question to ask. So this type of a mix of students, different ages, different cultural backgrounds, and then they ask you to explain how are you going to deal with it, right? So that's a favorite type of a question. So as you're preparing your thinking, and this is where in writing the research paper, you know, with flip over to the research paper here, just quickly. In writing the research paper, that's where these first 3 topics can help you to prepare your thinking for writing an answer to the type of question we just looked at. All right. So as you're preparing your thinking for the final research paper and the board exam, right now, as you are working your way through the modules, you should be well down in the modules by now. You should be past the midterm exam for sure. And as you're down here in the modules, you should be making notes for yourself. You should be making reference notes all the way through. I've got handwritten reference notes that I made when I was going through the Canvas platform that I used as study notes for the final board exam, and I used them when I was referencing my research paper as well. So be making notes for yourself to refer to later. And be sure to have a look at these exam preparation details. Okay? Farah, question.
Yeah, Daniel. So for diploma students, is the final board exam on the 3rd of September too?
Yes, when they say a final board exam on a certain date, they give each of the groups of students either a version 1 or a version 2 exam. So you would be sent the link for the version that is appropriate to you.
Okay.
So all the diploma students would write the same exam. All the foundation students would write the same exam. But the foundation students and the diploma students do not write the same exam, because on the diploma student exam, there's more material has been covered.
Yeah.
So it's a more extensive exam, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So now we're just going to have a quick look at writing a research paper. So when you're writing a research paper, we talked about using APA style. APA style is probably the best one for you to use for the referencing and sources, as Shok was asking about. APA style is easy to find information about. You can go to that website. In your browser, in your internet browser, you can just type in APA style format. Just type that in and you'll come up with a link to a website about it. Throughout your paper, you need to apply the following format guidelines. You should have margins of 1 inch on all sides. Double space the text. When you double space the text, it means there's extra space between the lines of typing. A lot easier to read. Indent the first line of every paragraph 0.5 inches. Use an accessible font. When they say accessible font, you could use Times New Roman or Arial or Georgia. I believe this is Arial, if I'm not mistaken. It's just very easy to read. That's what they mean by accessible, easy to read. Number your pages. Put page numbers on your research paper. And make sure that you have your name. I actually included my name on my research paper. I included it in a header so that it was obvious whose paper it was all the way through. Scribber is a website that you can go to and find out details about how to organize according to APA style in format, where to put page numbers, how to have a running head. They put a header in your document and it puts it at the top of every page automatically, but it doesn't interfere with your typing down lower on the page. And Scribber also gives examples of how to make the paper title, how to make it bold so it stands out, and organizing your name as the author and who it's for, which course it's for, the instructor's name. So this is where you would put Dr. Valley's name. You would not put my name. I'm the instructor for the webinars, but I'm not the instructor for the course. Dr. Valley would be the name that you would put there, and whatever your date of submission is. So again, according to the APA style, you have an abstract. This is a general opening part to your paper where you're describing what you're going to be talking about and where you're going to be getting your information from. You can include a keywords list at the bottom of the page after the abstract. And table of contents. Now, I did not have a table of contents in my paper. You can, but you don't have to. And again, just APA heading format. You know, the different styles of the bold text or the ordinary text, depending on whether it's a title, a subtitle, or part of the actual text of a paragraph. So all of these different aspects can be found on the Scribber website. Just type Scribber like that into your browser and you'll come up with Scribber. And this shows how to organize the details of a footnote. So the important thing is just a well-organized and a systematically organized paper with consistency throughout the paper. That's the biggest comment that I would make. And of course, plagiarism, you absolutely want to make sure that you do not plagiarize. So you do not need to buy a Scribber plagiarism checker. You don't need to buy that. You could if you want, but you don't need to buy it. Best way to avoid any problem with plagiarism is just don't do it. You know, if you read an idea that is a really good idea and you want to include it in your paper, either include it with quotation marks around it and a footnote reference or indicating where you got it from, showing a link to a website, for instance, or showing the name of the book or the document you got the information from. Or if you paraphrase it and put it into your own words, but you actually don't quote the person you're getting the thought from, then that's fine too. I mean, we all have thoughts that are based on something we read, and as long as we don't quote it directly, as long as you put it in your own words, then you're okay. Does it make sense? All right, because when I read people's research papers and I'm marking research papers, as I'm reading along, I get a sense of the tone of the style of the person's writing, of each of the students, whoever they are. I get a sense of the tone. If I bump into a paragraph that I think to myself, that's a totally different kind of a tone, and I don't think this is their own original set of words. I think they've copied this. I very simply copy that paragraph, paste that into my browser, and it finds the article that you plagiarized from. So we do check the internet for plagiarism sources. And I actually had one student's research paper that I gave a 0 on because they plagiarized so heavily. And they had to convince Dr. Valley to let them rewrite the paper and submit it again. So you don't want to be doing plagiarism because it will not help you. So the different parts of your paper. The main body of the paper starts off with an introduction, discussion of key points. You describe advantages and disadvantages, the pros and the cons, and then you have a summary or conclusion at the end. And the references bibliography absolutely must include references or bibliography. So there are different ways of sorting it out. And again, you can look up Scribr or go to the APA format website and make sure that you follow the style that is demonstrated to you. So we've looked at the Canvas platform with the 4 topics. If you think you want to write on a topic of your own choice that is not one of these 4, then you may do that, but you do have to get approval from TESOL before time. So if you have a topic you'd like to write about, send an email to Simon Baker and ask for approval. Be sure to give a thorough description of what your topic is about and how you're going to cover the material, what it is you're going to talk about. And you're almost writing an abstract of what you would like to write about. But, TESOL is pretty good about letting you come up with your own topic if you would prefer to. But you do need to get permission ahead of time. So don't just write a paper that's your own topic and hand it in without getting approval ahead of time. Okay? Any questions about about what we looked at there right now? No? All right. We have just a few minutes left to go. This is another PowerPoint presentation about whoops, I have to start sharing screen first. Sorry. Another PowerPoint presentation about the research project. Now this PowerPoint was designed by Anna Patricia, another one of the TESOL instructors. I don't believe she's done any of your webinars, but she was an instructor with TESOL in recent couple of years. So she talks about what is a research paper. And that takes you to the research paper assignment on the Canvas platform that we looked at. It is an in-depth consideration of a topic or a research project. A research question, sorry. it presents an original thesis statement. So you are asked to come up with some kind of original thinking related to the topic, some original ideas. You don't want to just be copying from other sources. You engage with primary and secondary sources. We'll have a look at what those mean in just a moment. And contributing something new to the field. Well, that links to you coming up with some kind of an original thought or idea, a proposal on the topic that you're writing on. This, keep in mind, this is not intended to be a master's thesis or a doctoral thesis. So when you contribute something new to the field, you're not contributing at the level of postgraduate study. That's beyond what this course is designed for. But you want to come up with some new ideas connected to the topic you're talking about. Similar to academic essays, but usually longer and more detailed assignments. So this research paper might not be longer, but this research paper might be more detailed than the average essay that you're familiar with writing. Sfara, you have a question?
Could you just go back one slide, Daniel?
Yes. To this slide?
Yes, I was just trying to take some notes there. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So this paper is to help us assess not only your writing skills, but also your skills in scholarly research. So how extensive is the research that you've done? How detailed is it? And how in-depth is it? And this paper requires you to demonstrate a strong knowledge of your topic, engage with a variety of sources. So in your bibliography, you should not have just one reference or two references. You should have at least half a dozen references. And there should be something in your paper that is making an original contribution to the debate. The stages of the process, the research and planning. That's the stage that you should be at right now with your decision about which assignment to do for your research paper. Very shortly, you should be getting into writing, at least writing down some rough notes and doing some brainstorming related to your assignment. And then after that, you go through multiple revisions. When I have a research paper, when I wrote the research paper that I showed you a few moments ago, I probably revised that at least 25 times. Reading it, and the beauty of doing it on a computer is you can cut and paste and move parts around inside a Word document. So I always go through lots of revision. As part of the revision process, your final editing and proofreading, I use one of my sisters for that. So I always email papers to her. She proofreads for me. Now, she might not know anything about the particular topic that I've written on, but she makes comments about it flows nicely, or by reading it, she had an understanding of what I was talking about without understanding details necessarily. But she also found spelling mistakes, or she found parts of sentences. So having somebody else read it for proofreading is good, because I had read it through for proofreading, but I knew what I wanted it to say. Therefore, I saw what I was expecting it to say. But I had actually left out parts of sentences by mistake. So it's a good idea to have a third party reading it as well. Before you get started, identify details about it, the deadline, the length specifications, formatting, submission method, all those important details. Dedicate the time going over the assignment. Carefully read the writing assignment prompts, the grading rubric, or any other materials you've received. Make a bulleted list of key points. This is your brainstorming. Then go back and cross off the completed items as you're writing. Carefully consider your time frame and word limit. Be realistic and plan enough time to research, write, and edit. Getting started. Choosing the topic. Clearly define and narrow down which of your 4 topics you're going to choose from. Don't neglect the guidelines given. Stay on topic. Don't wander off into some other disconnected area of conversation. After you've chosen from your list of topics, or you've gotten permission to write your own, then think about what was covered in the course, think about what we've talked about in webinars, think about your modules, link it back to the course. Follow your heart, passion, and curiosity. If you're really interested in the topic, you will do a better job writing about it. So pick a topic that you're really quite curious about. Investigate and understand all the different viewpoints and schools of thought. Explore the literature. Use books, journals, and other reliable resources. I used news, web links. I used online magazines and newspapers. I referred to blogs and university lectures. I referred to a lot of things. Consider a variety of perspectives and keep notes of all the source details and useful quotations. As you're going through the brainstorming part of this, and you're looking at material from all kinds of sources, keep a Word document with all the links in it that you looked at. To try and find those again later is a very time-consuming task and a waste of time. Save your links as you're going. You can always delete a link later, but keep track of all your links as you're actually working through the initial stages of your project. Now we'll look at primary versus secondary sources. Primary sources are direct first-hand evidence. They provide direct first-hand evidence regarding your topic. They're often the direct object of your analysis. They could be interview transcripts, actual works of art or literature, could be historical documents, or statistical data. Secondary sources are commentary or analysis. They discuss the same or similar texts as your own paper. The structure and support you. They are structured and support your argument by engaging with them critically. So these are journal articles, scholarly books, or reviews. So if you read a journal article about a work of art or literature, then you're using a secondary source. If you go to the original work of art or the original document of literature and you are discussing it directly, then you're using a primary source to base your comments on. So using primary and secondary sources is a good idea. So in my paper, I was using secondary sources, which were newspaper articles and other kinds of documents about a topic or reporting on a topic. But I also used primary sources because I went to Government of Canada documents. I went to the Government of Canada website about the LINK program, and I used actual government documents as a primary source, which was basically statistical data. As governments are notorious for putting out documents with statistical data in them, I was using those primary sources. So combination of primary and secondary sources. Are those clear? Does anybody have questions about what are primary versus secondary sources? Clear on that point? Good. Evaluating credibility, we call this the CRAP test. Currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose. Is the information up to date? Is it current? Is it relevant to your research? Where is it published and who is the author? Where does the information come from? Is evidence provided? That relates back to primary versus secondary source. And the purpose of what you're reading, why was the information published? That also links back to these primary versus secondary sources. Before you start writing, have a clear idea of the structure, your outline. This is your brainstorming outline. Organize your thoughts, understand how different ideas you've generated fit together, and ensure you don't forget anything. Formulating a thesis statement. This states your central argument, establishing the purpose and position of your paper. Answers your research question. It is concise, contentious, and coherent, and it guides your arguments later on in the paper. So this is an example of the thesis statement and how you develop it. I'm going to end right there for today because we're just at our time limit. Does anybody have any questions related to these research paper PowerPoints that we just had a look at? There are a number of more slides that we're only about halfway through that PowerPoint. I'll finish it off next week. We're good to go. Nobody has any questions. Does anybody have any questions at all connected to the course? Shok, go ahead.
Quick one. Yeah, I missed the lesson where you talked about the foundation essay, and I tried to find it on Canvas, but I couldn't. I only found the research on MOOC and the final research paper. But the foundation essay, I couldn't find it.
All right. Just give me a second. I'm just going back to the Canvas platform. So here you are in modules. You're working your way through modules. After day 4, you have first language acquisition and second language acquisition. Go inside second language acquisition. Scroll down the page. Here's your foundation essay. Right here.
Oh, okay. So it's not because it's not between assignments, because I remember reading this before the midterm, but I didn't. Okay, got it.
So this is where you have your 8 topics. Right here under second language acquisition, okay?
Okay. Great.
Any other questions, folks?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Good to go? Nobody has any questions? All right, thank you very much to those of you who did a demo presentation today. And next Monday, we'll listen to some more demos of people who have them ready to do. So if you did not do a demo today, please be prepared to do a demo next week for us. And now you've observed a few of them being done. So it's a simple matter of sharing your presentation. And if you want to email it to me, I can share it for you. That's not a problem. That's easy to do. And yeah, so we'll look forward to hearing some more next week. I am going to stop the recording now.